Hey everybody, it's Deborah. Welcome to one of our monthly calls, and I'm delighted to be here with you all, my tribe, my soul family members, as well as all of those of you on Facebook. So, not too late to say Happy New Year to those of you who I haven't seen yet this year, and we're just passing, what is today, 22nd, we're just passing the time period of the deepest and most profound opportunity we have really to connect with the spirit world. It starts around the, maybe as early as the 6th of December and runs till about the 6th to 12th of January. And so we've just left that time period. So now it's time to go back and engage more with the world and with worldly projects. Could be maybe you're interested in the environment, or you're worried about a political situation, or you're worried about rights. Maybe you're like me, you're an activist. So middle of January is a great time to start cooking up those kinds of things, as well as things that are just for you, self-improvement kind of things. Maybe you want to make this the year you focus on your health, or your wealth, or your weight, or, you know, it could be anything. So today I have a special guest. Here's how this happened. Back in November, on one of our soul family calls, I had a guest speaker, Lisa Vander. Kaay. It was hosted by one of our student teachers, that call, and she was so engaging and interesting, and the material was so fascinating about herbs that I decided to bring her back this month to talk again, because I wanted my Facebook audience to hear what Lisa has to say. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. Super excited to share herbalism with you guys and provide a little knowledge.
Okay. So how did you get interested in it? Where'd you start with the herbs?
So when I was about 10 years old, well, I've always kind of been into health, but when I was about 10 years old, my mom introduced me to homeopathy. And so on and off for years, that was kind of what we did for as a part of our medical history. And that was kind of my first foray into plant medicine.
So your mother was alternative, interested in, well, homeopathy is pretty alternative.
She is. I mean, I didn't, you know, at the time I didn't know what it was. I just knew that that's where she wanted me to go. And so I decided to kind of go along for the ride. And some of the herbs, as you know, I think you've done homeopathy, right? Mm-hmm. They can be a little bit, you know, difficult to taste and understand as a kid. But as I progressed and I got older, I see how they functioned in my body and was able to see the benefits, you know, from a personal perspective. And then fast forward several years later, when I was about 42, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease.
That was a very quick fast forward.
Yeah, well.
I was at 8.
You were at 8. Well, I was at 10. Yeah, so.
Anything happen in between?
Well, in terms of herbalism, yeah.
No, in terms of how you became interested well, you said you were always interested in health and that you were exposed to homeopathy. Mm-hmm. But then I think something else happened, because I'm somewhat familiar with your story.
Yes, well, I had a pituitary tumor.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so at the age of 39, which is about 11 years ago now, I was diagnosed with a pituitary tumor. And technically, I self-diagnosed my pituitary tumor because I started having some hormonal issues. So I went out to my doctor and I said, you know, I'm having these symptoms that just don't seem right. My breasts were getting enlarged. I was losing my period. I was doing things that, you know, you wouldn't think technically at 39 would happen. And she basically said to me, you know, I think you're possibly going through
the menopause.
And I said, no, I don't think so.
Showed you the door.
Yeah, right. I mean, she's wonderful, but I just, you know, sometimes doctors, when you're there, they're seeing you, but maybe they don't see you as a whole person and more than what could possibly be. Mm-hmm. And so I went home that night and I decided to research it, because that's what I do for a living. I'm a research analyst. And so I dove in and tried to figure out what was going on with me. And I kind of put in the symptoms, and a couple things popped up, but one that stood out was pituitary tumor. And there's a blood test that you can use to physically test to see if that's what you have. And it's called a prolactin hormone.
Uh-huh.
And that's what happens when women are pregnant. Their hormone, that particular hormone raises.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one indicator that you could possibly have a pituitary tumor. So I did the test, and it was as if I was pregnant, which was not possible.
How did you get the test ordered? You went to a physician to get the test ordered?
I believe I went back to my gynecologist to do that. And she ordered it. Yeah, that's what happened. And then she referred me.
Can I interject something here to our audience?
Yes.
Don't try this at home. And by that I mean, most people, when they go research something on the internet, they decide they have a dreaded disease, and they're way, way wrong.
Yeah.
And they're nervous wreck, and I'm calming them down and telling them they really need to go get an expert opinion. So you were 1 in a million. Most people can't self-diagnose a pituitary tumor, Lisa. That's fairly unusual. That might have been a signal to you that you had a life path that you weren't aware of.
Yeah, I would say so.
People with medical and physical stuff.
That's kind of been a thing for me. If I just digress and go back, I've always helped people with health. You know, hey, do this herb or do that thing, and I've kind of done that my whole life. And it just, as I
it's your real calling.
Yeah,
it is. I think you also studied coaching along the way, right?
I did. I went to the Institute of Integrated Nutrition right after my Lyme diagnosis to kind of delve deeper and to, learn more about mind, body, soul.
Well, hold on. You were dealing with the pituitary tumor, and now you're telling us about Lyme disease. Tell me what happened there.
Okay.
When did that develop?
So that was, so pituitary tumor, I went and I got diagnosed. I was treated, and then I had surgery about 6 months later because I opted for that. And it was removed.
Very smart.
It was removed, and it was benign, and there were some issues that I had in the hospital, but generally everything after that was fine. The only thing that didn't come back was my energy. I just felt really depleted for quite a long time.
Why do you think? I mean, surgery is very depleting, but how many hours was it?
Almost 4.
Oh, wow.
It took a little longer. I think they run 2 to 3, if I recall correctly, but maybe it was a little longer than 4, but it was quite a bit of time.
Well, that's a long time under.
Yeah.
They say there's a formula. My own experience, and I've had a few surgeries now because I had an accident, is that it's about 6 months to a year for every hour before you really feel like yourself again.
Yeah. And that wasn't my first surgery. I've had a couple others prior to that as well, but they were.
Yeah, now not to scare our audience, because there is a way to speed up that recovery. And one of the techniques that I know works the best, it's one of the most basic energy healing techniques there is, and of course you've learned it here, is chelation. Can really speed up the removal of the chemicals, mostly from the anesthesia, but other stuff too that you're given. It can help remove it from your body when you don't need it. You're out of surgery. You don't need that stuff anymore.
Right.
And I just want to make one other comment for our viewers here that I think is really important, is that you guys can really learn from what Lisa's talking about, is that you know how important it is. I'm always really urging that we integrate ourselves with Western medicine, not deny it. Go get the tests, go get the surgery. Really, don't shine it on. I think that's the most effective way to manage your health. Just so go ahead, Lisa. I'll quit interrupting.
Agree. No, I agree with you 100%. I don't think you can just have one part and not do the other.
Right.
I think you need to have complementary all the way around.
So nature hands you a bunch of things to learn from.
Right.
Pituitary tumor, Lyme disease, probably some other life events, and encourages you to get very involved in the healing field. Alternatively.
Right. So when I had Lyme disease.
Now we're at herbs.
Right. So with the Lyme disease, my integrated doctor prescribed these medicinal herbal tinctures, and there were several of them to combat the Lyme disease. Now, typically.
Hold on, what kind of doctor was this person?
Integrated, so functional medicine
Oh
is
God,
what
I
she
love
was.
functional medicine.
Yeah, she's
Oh,
fantastic.
love it.
Yeah, so I found her
Yeah.
just after my pituitary tumor.
Okay.
And so
They're the
that's,
best.
and she's amazing. They provide such insight to your body, more than just going into your regular doctor who's just kind of looking at you in the eyes and not seeing everything.
You know, their training, I don't know if you've looked at what they do. Their training is enormous. And it's a blend of East and West, totally. You know, I like it. I have a functional medicine doctor, and mine's a nurse practitioner, actually, guys. So they don't have to be an MD.
Right.
She works under an MD, and she's so gifted. First of all, she doesn't know this, but she's incredibly intuitive. So when she's looking at you, she's working more in my field. She's, I think, unaware how intuitive she is. But then she'll pull from her toolbox. She might give you a antibiotic prescription, as well as a vitamin B12 shot, as well as a herbal tincture. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, well-rounded.
Go ahead.
So she prescribed those, well, technically not prescribing, but she gave me herbal tinctures that I took a lot of them over the course of 2 years. You start out small, you go big, you know, to kind of get the bacteria, so to speak, out of your body. So I did that for a couple of years.
Did you do any, quote, Western stuff for the Lyme?
I did, but that was only at the very beginning. What happened was I tested positive for Lyme via LabCorp, just a standard, you know, lab. And then, you know, was like, that could be a false positive, you know, let's go to a special lab, which we did. And I did 3 months of antibiotics to kind of provoke the Lyme. So in doing that, that was the only conventional one I did. I mean, technically she's an internist, but a functional medicine doctor. So it's complementary, but I chose personally to only do the herbal protocol, and that's mostly what she does in her practice.
But you did do an initial course of antibiotics? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, it's very common with Lyme.
For 3 months to provoke it, to get the special lab to show that I was testing positive, which I did. And so during that time, we would just vary the herbal supplements. And I did that on and off with her for 2 years. It was really hard, actually, to go through that process because like I said before, my energy was real low and not great. And when you're detoxing, so to speak, you know, everything's trying to flush out of your system faster than you could do it.
It's very tiring.
It was hard. Yeah. And the pituitary tumor was hard, but this was hard in a different way because you're working and you're doing things, but you're also kind of struggling to kind of push forward and not survive, but, you know, get through the day. So
just to interject something, I just was working with a homeopathist a few days ago who I'd like to bring in to teach in my programs. And he was criticizing me because, pretty much because I don't allow enough time for rest. He said, how in the world can your body heal? And I'm like, rest?
Right.
Time to work. But yeah, we don't honor the fact that the body will heal itself if you give it a chance. But by a chance, it really needs. And I know you have a corporate career.
Yeah.
That's kind of big time. So who had time to rest, right?
Well, no.
But did you make time? Did you take midday naps?
Yes.
For example?
No.
I didn't think
not
so.
in my business. I can't do that. Unfortunately, it's not allowed. Unfortunately, I mean, you know, if I wasn't feeling well, I might take a day. But generally, my personality is kind of similar to yours, whereas that, you know, if I can push through, I'm gonna do it. But I do listen to my body. But there is some point where if I'm trying to get through and do something and complete a project, I'm kind of focused on that, and that's where I'm going.
So now we're at the point where the Lyme is gone.
Right. I just kind of stopped treating it.
How long did it take? A couple of years?
Well, 2 years. I tested negative. Well, tested positive one time, and then a second time at that special lab. And then after that, I just stopped testing positive. And around the 2-year mark, I decided I'd kind of reached my limit with the herbs, and I felt like it in some way, like I didn't need it anymore.
Really
And
funny. And
a friend,
everybody listening and watching will have had this experience themselves. Once you've been sick for a while, it's a very odd moment to think, am I well?
yeah,
Am I well? You know, it's like a bridge you go across. And I really encourage people to look for that when they've had some chronic thing like Lyme.
hmm
It's real important to pick a day and go, you know, I think, you know, by Monday, I think I'm going to be fine.
that's basically what I did. I
Mm-hmm.
decided that I no longer wanted to be in that realm anymore, as much as I love the
You
herbs.
want to be
But like,
healthy.
yeah,
Right.
I'd had enough. It
Uh-huh.
had been at that point 5 years since I had
It's
been
almost like you
sick.
take off a garment. You know, I'm going to take
Yeah,
off the sick garment and stick it over there in the closet.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mindset.
was ready to, I was just going to say that, shift my mindset.
Yeah.
So, and it just kind of snapped and I was done. So shortly after that, a friend of mine had taken a class at a local herbalist down the street from here. It's just in Long Beach. And I immediately connected with her and her style of teaching, and saw that she was offering an apprenticeship program. So I immediately clicked in, signed up right away, just did it, dove head first into it. And I did 2 year-long apprenticeships with her.
Oh,
And
wow. Extensive.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, your first year is they're laying the foundation. You're getting in the garden. You're learning
Mm-hmm.
about each herbs, their energetics, their actions.
Did she have a garden at her home?
No, she has a classroom. Like, she physically has a place
Uh-huh.
where people go.
Mhm.
And then down the street, there's a community garden. So, like those community gardens, you see people where they have their own herbs
Right,
and such.
right.
That's what this is. But it
So
was
you ran over
quite
from the
large.
office and took off your heels and I
Put
could
my
picture
hat
it.
on and my
That's right. Got your boots
got
on.
my tools on, and yeah. So that was my way
That
to, I
sounds
think,
like so much fun.
it
That part,
really
the garden
was.
part.
I spent my week. Yeah, gardening is fantastic. Like, we have
Uh-huh.
a garden in our backyard.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's a good way to ground and
Uh-huh.
get
Get
back to
outside.
yourself and get outside
Mhm.
and learn. I always have I'm a seeker in a lot of ways, where it's like I'm constantly wanting to learn about different things that can affect the body and the
Mhm.
health. And so that's one of the reasons why I took the course. And I just wanted to get better and maybe help other people.
And what was her your teachers? What was her specialty? Was it herbs from the U.S.? Did she have a specialty?
Well, she practices Western herbalism.
Okay.
So that's technically what it's called.
Uh-huh.
But her style of teaching is fantastic. She's telling you about how the herbs work in your body and their herbal energetics, et cetera, et cetera. But she's also teaching you about the constituents, the science behind it, the chemistry
Uh-huh.
behind it. So she delves in a little bit deeper. That's her
Uh-huh.
background, in order to give you a full overview of what
Mhm.
you're working with.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Sounds really interesting. My herbal training is all Ayurvedic.
yeah.
Well, I don't know Western herbs.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Well, there's a little bit of overlap. I mean, we learned about Ayurveda. Well, I learned at the Institute of Integrated Nutrition, but I also learned with her as well.
Mhm.
They even cover a little bit of Chinese herbs as well.
Mhm. Well, and I know a fair amount about Chinese because Ayurveda overlaps quite a bit with Chinese.
Right.
Yeah.
And Western herbalism does teach you about the tissue states, kind of like
Mhm.
the Ayurveda and Chinese do.
Uh-huh.
There's a subspecialty of that where you can learn about how herbs will affect you in that regard, whether they're cooling or
Mhm.
warming, those kinds of things.
Mhm. You probably noticed that I've had 3 blogs in a row on sleep, and I think I
I
mentioned
did.
to you. Well, I think
I
it's
was impressed.
a topic that is not covered enough. And
Yeah,
I don't think as a society, as a culture, I don't think we realize how deficient we have become in sleep.
it's quite true.
It's subtle, it's pervasive, but every year people sleep less.
Hmm.
It's just amazing that 100 years ago, we all slept several hours more a night, 2 to 3 hours more a night than we do now.
Right.
I mean, that's just shocking. That's a shocking statistic because our bodies haven't changed that much in 100 years. They really
That's
haven't.
true.
So, yeah. So I got really interested in it actually over the Christmas holiday. I was reading quite a bit about it, and I thought, well, I won't get too deep because people will quit reading. But I did try to throw out some important concepts, and I covered herbs, but very, very lightly because I was
Right.
expecting to talk to you about them.
Right. I
What
also
are your
want to tell
thoughts
you,
there? Go ahead.
I just want to mention one more thing that after I did those two apprenticeships with Julie, I went and did a field botany apprenticeship.
Oh, perfect.
So for me, that was, I wanted to get out in the environment, with the plants and get to know them more on an intimate level, which I had before, but this was a whole new world of learning how they are in the environment and how they react and grow and all those good things.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Really interesting.
Yep. So that's my foray, and I've done online courses with some other herbalists as well. But in terms of apprenticeships, those are my main apprenticeships, learning in person with.
So tell us
teachers.
what you think about herbs and sleep.
Well, so there's a lot of different things you can do when you're actually. I noticed that you had 8 wonderful different types of herbs. One of the things that that's done kind of in the herbal community is when you're looking at a particular issue, for this matter, you want to use like an intake form. And an intake form is going to provide you, kind of like when you go into a doctor's office, they say, fill out all this information, tell us what you're doing, what's your lifestyle, what is your stress, what is your diet like, what's your emotional state like, what kind of issues are you physically having. And those kinds of things will give you a more well-rounded view of a person. Also, your constitution, that's really important, as you know, because herbs have their own energetics.
And so
they
do
can make
you.
you cooling and warming. And I was just going to say that. And so do you. So you want to match up the right herbs to a particular person. And so that's a really good way to do it. It's also too, it depends on, is their issue chronic, or is there, is it just a minor type of issue? So there's a lot that you want to do before attempting to kind of give a person herbs. But there are different herbal actions that you can use. So there are, and a lot of them you talked about. So the herbal energetic actions would be nervine relaxants. And then this class of herbs, what they do is they work to ease tension in your body. And they're specifically work on your nervous system. So a lot of the herbs that you included in your blog post work with that. There's other herbs that I would probably incorporate into somebody's lifestyle, which are adaptogens. So think ashwagandha, think tulsi, you're familiar with that. Right. Think astragalus, some other herbs that are going to give them what they need during the daytime. And then there are herbs like valerian, which is an antispasmodic. That's what they call it. I know these are kind of weird words I'm throwing out, but these herbs that fall underneath that umbrella are going to work with pain or muscle cramps and things like that. So if somebody is, having restless leg syndrome or something like that in the middle of the night, valerian is really good for that.
Yeah, no, they're very specific, of course. You have to be keyed into the individual, but that,
right.
When I go back to my own training, which is Ayurvedic, that's what we always do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And not just the individual, but, where are they in the moment of time that you're talking to them right then? What season is it? Where have they been traveling? Where do they live? What are they eating?
You can really drill down and be really specific.
How are they feeling? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's wonderful to be able to walk into a health food store now and just, pick up an herb that has been pre-blended for you. But it's also another thing to know about what you're taking in your body and how it's going to react to you.
I would not encourage someone to just grab an herb.
No.
Ever.
No.
Be like grabbing a prescription drug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if it were me, just for people who have no kind of experience with herbs, I would start out just taking one herb. I would do, they call it simples in the community. And basically that just means you're getting to know, like, if you've never done valerian before, then take that one herb only and then
Uh-huh.
decide if that's the right herb for you, and then you can kind of work your way through
Well,
that.
contrast that to the kind of homeopathy that I espouse is classical homeopathy, where you only use one remedy at a time.
Right.
Same thing. It's the same
Right.
theory. Yeah.
Right.
Same theory.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
We can extend that theory into energy healing, by the way, and just
Mm-hmm.
use one modality at a time. I have
Mm-hmm.
done that with some clients. I've thought, you know what, I'm going to try just one modality and see how it goes here.
Mm.
Not a whole kitchen full of stuff.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So just chelation only, or what have you?
Yeah. I think I've
Okay.
done it with just brain healings, for example.
Okay. Yeah.
A couple sessions, and just coaching for a couple sessions. Sometimes you think that there's just one that's really pivotal for, a particular client. Now, what about essential oils? How do you feel about them?
Well, I use essential oils very
Uh-huh.
moderately and only topically. So essential oils they're kind of the thing right now. They're the fad, and everybody's using them. When you distill plants to make them the volatile oils into an essential oil, you're using only 1/3 of the plant. So to me, I'm kind of a whole plant person. I want to get all the energetics and the constituents from the whole plant. And I'm not opposed to essential oils. I'll use them to add a fragrance or scent for lotions that I make, because I make my own lotions.
Uh-huh.
But another great way to, well, if you think about it, just a little 15 milliliter essential oil takes 3 pounds or more of herbs, plant material, to make that little bottle.
Now, see,
So
I
it's
really
quite a
worry
bit.
about them because they're so intense.
I would never ingest them.
Oh.
And I know that some people do that.
Oh, I didn't
but
know that. That's not a good idea.
I've heard that before, which,
my God.
to be honest, I must say that makes me extremely nervous,
Yeah,
because
that
they
doesn't feel
are
safe.
so, it's not.
Mhm.
They're so highly, they're just so potent that it's something you never want to do. Even some that you put on your skin, you can have a reaction to, because they're just, they're not meant really to be like that.
Mhm.
But they do have their uses, and I don't, my lights just went off. I don't, like I said, I don't use them that often, but I will use them like in my lotions, but I will also use plant material and create an herbal oil out of that. So an herbal oil is basically you just take a bunch of herb and you put it into like a ball jar, and then you could fill it with like jojoba, olive oil, whatever oil you can get your hands on, and that's something you can physically put on your skin, and you get a contact of lavender or whatever you want to do, calendula, and have that go through your epidermis that way, and get a similar effect but different. Yeah.
So let's see if we have any. If you have a question about herbs, you can just raise your hand. Those of you who are here, lots of people lots of people over on Facebook, I see. So yeah, just let us know. Raise your hand for me if you have a question for Lisa.
Great.
And we're almost out of time. I just wanted to mention that. Quite serendipitously, actually, Lisa's going to be speaking at Conscious Life Expo, and that's in about 3 weeks. Let me pull it up here for you guys. It's February
7th.
Yeah, Conscious Life Expo is 3 days, Friday, Saturday,
Right.
Sunday, and 7, 8, and 9. And Lisa's speaking at noon on Sunday. So if you want to know a lot more and hear her talk about this even more, you want to come to Conscious Life Expo. We'd love to see you there, because we're going to be there all weekend. We'll have a really good time. We're going to have a booth, as we have in many years past. And I'll be speaking at
2 p.m. Saturday.
Thank you. I just knew the day. 2 p.m. on Saturday. Now I'm also speaking on Friday night on a panel. Pretty otherworldly panel. I'll tell you what it's called here. Let me grab it real quick. The Ancient Secrets panel. And you're going to say to yourself, what in the world's Deborah doing on an Ancient Secrets panel? Well, that's because on Saturday I'm speaking about star seeds, and it's a whole very interesting field, and I'd be really interested to share it with you. So hence them putting me on the Ancient Secrets panel the night before on Friday night. And then I'm on a healing panel on Sunday, which of course is a fit. So just see if I see anybody have any questions. No, but I see a couple of comments here in the chat window. Jessica Sherman said, how true. She said she had the same epiphany one day. She decided she just didn't want to be sick anymore and took ownership of her health, which is totally the way to do it. So let's all give Lisa a big hand for presenting, and very interesting, by the way, very interesting. Would love to sit down with you and talk about Ayurveda and herbology. That would be really interesting for me.
Yeah, I would love that.
Oh, hold on. There's one more question in the I think I see one more question in the window here. Hey, Nevart, thank you for putting a link to the workshop. That's really helpful. And I'm not seeing the Q&A question. Where is it? Oh, in the Q&A. Nancy Neff points out that homeopathy, she says, is like energy medicine. It sure is, Nancy. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. There's a huge overlap there. If I get time, I'll go back and study it.
Oh, homeopathy. Yeah.
Oh,
it's
I know.
amazing.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Those of you here in our soul family, our tribe, and also all of you out on Facebook. Great being with you. See you all soon. Thanks again to Lisa. Take care.